Welcome everyone to the North Sound ACH 2021 Summer Partner Convening. We're delighted that all of you are here and more coming in. Great to see a bunch of names and some faces popping up. It's always nice to connect. This is our second convening of the year, the summer convening. And as we know here in the Northwest, it is definitely feeling like summer. It's heating up. And again, so grateful that you all would take your time to be here. I know this is not this group's first Zoom rodeo, but want to encourage those of you as you're coming in to maybe look at the box and make sure that as on the top right-hand corner in the blue, if you need to add anything, would be great to have your name, your pronouns, and your organization. So if you wouldn't mind taking a moment for that so we can continue to make those connections as we're in dialogue with one another, that would be really wonderful. And with that being said, I'd love to have Liz Baxter take it away and kind of kick us off with a welcome.
Great. Thank you so much, Monty. Always so awesome to have your team working with us on these sessions. So I envisioned a year ago that we might actually be back in person this summer, but obviously not yet. So here we are, still virtual. We are certainly over the next 2 days looking forward to engaging with you and learning with you. And I know that each and every one of you probably could have been elsewhere and are double booked and such. So we're just really grateful, as Monty said, that you were willing to be here with us. So I want to start by sharing our land acknowledgement statement. And even though we are in this virtual space together, it's important for us to recognize and honor the place where each of us are sitting. So we begin by acknowledging with humility that the land where we are today is the territory of the people of the Salish Sea. Their presence is imbued in the waterways, shorelines, valleys, and mountains of the traditional homelands of the Coast Salish people since time immemorial. And I think Stacey's going to put in the chat box a link to a resource that we often use where you can learn more about the land where you are, maybe where you were born, where you went to school, just to continue us all on this learning journey. And I just also wanted to share that, there's a land acknowledgement brochure that our team worked with Children of the Setting Sun Productions on a couple of years ago. And this is a helpful starting tool for your teams or your partners to develop your own approach to land acknowledgement. Over the last few months, even more so, I've been thinking about this land acknowledgement statement that we have. And are there ways that we can actually make it a more active part of our work, not just a, continual recitation of 45, 50 words? And over the past year, through the Vital Conditions and our partnership with community initiatives and others, we've been talking about legacy and stewardship. And the words that are in that land acknowledgement statement, their presence is imbued in, are incredibly powerful. Because tribal leaders have played such critical leadership role in the protection of those waterways, shorelines, valleys, and mountains that we sometimes take for granted, but it's a very special place to be up here in the North Sound region. So we're incredibly grateful that you all are on this journey with us, in community with us. And over these next 2 days, we'll be celebrating the work that you all are doing and then looking forward. Like, what does this mean moving into 2022 and beyond? As Monty said, we've been working with this team since 2019 and appreciate always, Monty, your willingness to step in and help facilitate us through these sessions. And, Monty and Stacy and Elizabeth will be partnering with me, Nicole, Alicia, to facilitate this time together today and tomorrow. So with that, Monty, I'm probably going to turn it back to you and help us get started.
Yeah, thanks, Liz. Yeah, and our CI team, we're always really grateful to share space with you, Liz, and your team, but this whole partnership, it really means a lot to us, and also appreciate your leadership around the land acknowledgement. It's something that we've been learning a lot from and doing our best in our other work nationally to really spread. So thanks so much for leading on that front, and be interested to see how that continues to evolve. As Liz suggested, kind of the next couple of days, these are kind of the goals that kind of collectively a number of you helped shape these partner convenings. And one is really just to kind of step back in some ways. I think using this term absorb, there's so much going on. We're always moving so fast to really celebrate the progress. And we're going to start to hear about some of the bright spots that are taking place across this network. I think each of us touches maybe a piece of what's going on, but we don't always get to see the whole mosaic. And so we're going to have a chance to do that today, to really continue to grow our capacity for shared learning, and setting us up for shared action. And then again, just to double click on, Liz's, earlier comment that this is really a pivotal meeting in some ways. It's an opportunity to kind of really reimagine and prepare for a life after the Medicaid transformation project. And one of the ways that we're going to do that is really to explore this new compact that you're going to get a chance to see a sneak peek of, perhaps at the end of this meeting, or on the other side of it is an email coming through, but also actually kind of unpacking that a little bit and really getting your feedback and insights on that, and kind of what it represents. So those are the kind of the big rocks for our convening. And today is kind of back to the absorbing there. We want to really take a moment to hear some of the bright spots. And we have some partners that are willing to kind of share their bright spots, kind of the momentum and that they're seeing, and some of the results that they're proud of. And Nicole's going to lead us through that momentarily. And there's going to be a chance for you then in smaller groups to kind of share your bright spots. And I know those questions were sent out earlier on, and if you didn't have a chance to think about them earlier on, it's okay, because I think they're pretty straightforward, and we're going to be in small groups and you can kind of just offer them on the fly. And so we're going to, after that, take a little bit of a break. And I think Nika has a fun poetry exercise that we're going to be doing at the same time of break. And on the other side of that, the second half of our day one is really kind of getting into kind of how we've been learning together, the different ways that partners have been learning together, what we can glean from that. And we're going to have a chance to kind of take a peek at this knowledge management system that many of you offered input on and have helped guide. And so we're going to get a first glimpse of that. So that's really much of day one. And then that should set us up for day two, which is really, again, starting to think and reimagine what kind of our future looks like together. So hopefully that feels pretty straightforward. And let me just kind of do one light touch on working agreements, just some working assumptions, if you will. Thank you, for starters, for showing up on time. As Liz said, I know this is a really big commitment, but I think that this network, my observation is, actually really enjoys time together as a full network, even when it is on Zoom, and hopefully one day in person. And we will absolutely honor people's time by ending on time, if not a little bit before. But so we want to make sure we honor time. Going to encourage folks to be present. And in this Zoom space, that means when you're able to have your camera on, that's great. We know that you may need to use the restroom, take a bio break, grab some food, and turn your camera off. That's fine. But particularly in the small groups, if you could turn your camera on, that's great. I know some of you are participating by phone, and Tiffany is going to remind us a little bit around how we can make sure we have you all connected up before we jump into the small groups. I already see many of you are active on the chat, and so that's really helpful. I encourage you to continue to chat things that you want to affirm, ideas that you have, or questions, and just to share airtime, particularly when we're in small groups. We want to hear all voices. Everybody here is welcome. And this is absolutely, and both today and particularly tomorrow, this is an opportunity to really test some new ideas, to take some risks that may not have been thought of. This is, I think, a really open space for any of that. And this last one is maybe these days a little bit countercultural in America, at least, which is, let's make sure we're rigorous on ideas. There's a lot at stake here in our communities, and you all represent a very, very powerful network that is only growing in power. And let's make sure that what you're aiming to do is what you feel like is the right thing, not just for your organizations, but for this regional community. And at the same time, let's be gentle on people. We may have different views of this. And one thing, again, that I've always taken away from being part of this network is how you all have extended gracious space to one another. And we still, just like our last meeting, we're in times where people are really still suffering and struggling, and we're in the middle of a heat wave. And so however you show up, whether you're ready to talk about the future or whether you're just trying to get through the day, it's a-okay. So thank you for being here. And on that note, moving on over to bright spots, I'm going to pass it to you, Nicole.
Great. Thank you, Monty. This photo, I think it's kind of humorous. When I was asked to kind of start prepping for our bright spots session today, we were just in the beginning stages of another COVID wave. And I thought, what in the world are the bright spots? Everything is terrible. The world is literally on fire. And I did what I kind of classically do, which is take a deep breath. And I do this activity that grounds me, which is to just go back and look at some photos of travel. And so this time for prepping for this, I looked at past photos from our team, and very, coincidentally on my phone popped up this photo this morning. It said, a year ago today, this is what you were doing. So if you can't see from this photo, this is what, I only think this was half of our order, but a 2 million cloth masks. We were able to shove a semi through a tiny narrow alley in Bellingham, Washington, and unload about 1 million masks into a church basement. For me, what you don't see is this is the first time our team got to see each other since we closed our doors in March of 2020. And it was August where we all really were in the same space together. So there's a sense of giddiness that I remember us having. We weren't really touching each other, and we had plenty of sanitizer, masks up, but we got to see each other. And so if you'll just indulge me for a few minutes, I wanted to share a couple more photos that started to remind me where this region has been. We've been through so much. We've pivoted our work. Here's a photo of, this is our little octopus mascot alone. The last day we closed up shop and I said goodbye in our teamwork chat. I checked out everybody. A few days later, sister needed some help. So here's my little nephew on the floor in our conference room. We got some care packages going for our team. We took care of our team in the early stages. And then I'm going to the next slide, Elizabeth. And then we started hearing from partners of, we've still got work to do. We need some assistance with getting more masks. So we leaned into this with all of you. Here's a couple photos. There's a classic semi truck that's always much bigger than you think it's going to be. We roped in our family members. In the bottom left, there's my parents picking up care and food kits. It was really all hands on deck. I never shoved so many boxes into my single CRV. I don't know if I could see out the window. And I just these are fond memories that I have in some of these very dark times. And I know a lot of you have your own stories and your own photos of some bright spots. You can go to the next slide, Elizabeth. And 2020, it was a little bit more of the cloth masks and a little more, maybe I might call simple COVID response. And then 2021, our team, along with many of the partners, we kept expanding our work, and you all kept expanding your work. You kept leaning in. We had partners who had worked together for decades, finding new ways to work together. We had some partners who had never worked together before, and they found some kindredships in organizations. And new partnerships have been continuing to merge, even just over this summer. And these are some photos of us recent testing, continuing help with vaccine. And I think, is there one more? Is that it, Elizabeth? Yep. Okay, that's it. That's Michaela's. We last year and this year, these new partnerships, existing partnerships, working together differently, staff leaning in and showing up for one another. So we thought it would be helpful. We know you all have your stories too, but we've asked for folks to help kind of set the stage and get you thinking about sharing your stories. And they're going to share their stories today. We have a great panel. The first one who's going to go is Polly Dubel, who's from Skagit County Public Health. She's the communicable disease manager. And then we've got Ario Salazar from Communities and Schools, Whatcom and Skagit. And then we have Amy Nichols and Michaela Vendiola, who are going to be presenting together. And Amy is a lead youth planner with the North Sound Indigenous Futurity Alliance and program coordinator with Communities of Color Coalition. And Michaela is with us with North Sound ACH. Polly is going to go first, and then we'll go Ario second.
Thank you, Nicole. And let me just say that every time I work with the ACH, it's a bright spot for me and for our program. Everything Nicole just said reflects my feeling as well. And some of her pictures I am going to adopt as part of what I'm talking about. So just a very clear, simple, bright spot from us amongst many while working with the ACH is when we first started in the pandemic, and we had to tell people, you have to stay home for 10 days or you have to stay home for 14 days. There wasn't a lot of guidance or assistance early on about, well, how do people actually do that? Like, how do people have food in their houses? Do they have diapers? Do they have diaper wipes? Do they have their medication up to date? And many people don't. And that's just the way many of us live day to day. Some people only buy food paycheck to paycheck. That's very common. And so we became very aware of those needs. And at first we had no system to meet those needs other than running out and buying people groceries and delivering them, taking grocery lists. And that was great. It felt very good to do that, but it was also extremely time consuming and not very sustainable for us. We would have kept doing it if we had to, but fortunately, the ACH was able to step in and they arranged for wonderful food and care kits. They were many of those boxes that Nicole was sharing. They got a warehouse in LaConner to store hundreds and hundreds of food and care kits. And then they started supplying us as the local health jurisdiction here in Skagit. So that we had just go-to supplies for everyone. The care kits are really, everything's super appreciated by people. When you go to their doorstep to drop off the food or the care kits, it may be the first face someone has seen from outside their household in a few days. And they smile and they feel human again, and they know that they're going to have food for a few days, and they know that now they know how to get more resources until they can come out of their household. And that's just a very basic thing to help people feel that they're part of the community, that they have someone looking after them while they're experiencing this awful pandemic that has reached their own household. And the ACH has just been so on top of keeping those supplies up and making sure we have our needs met. They've also been able to expand handing out those food and care kits to doing that at events like vaccine clinics and community service outreach. And so that for us has been a real bright spot. And in fact, we have a whole hallway at Public Health full of additional food and care kits. And thank goodness we have them, because Delta is just something that we are experiencing right now. So people still have high need, and we're still so grateful for the backup to the ACH. And in addition, they are also monitoring the data. They're monitoring information in the disease reporting system in the state database to make sure that there are no gaps in service to people, to make sure that if a local health jurisdiction hasn't been able to respond right away, that they check on that and make sure that that family or that person gets the services they need. That is my bright spot, and I think it shines very bright, and we really appreciate your help.
Thank you so much, Polly. It's been a bright spot for our team to be able to work with you too. I'm going to pass it over to Ario. You are up next, Ario.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Ario Salazar, and I'm the Executive Director of Communities in Schools of Whatcom and Skagit County. And today, I guess I will be sharing some of the broad impacts and highlights of the year that we had. Needless to say, I'm sure that everyone here is feeling like this was the year that felt like a decade, right? That's kind of how we describe how it is that we navigated through the ever-shifting ground beneath us, and also in trying to connect and meet the needs, address and regard the needs of the students and the families with whom we worked. So I'll begin briefly by saying that we provided services to over 7,000 students in 10 school sites that run across both Whatcom and Skagit. We were in Blaine, Ferndale, Bellingham, and Mount Vernon were the 4 school districts where we were present. You are seeing a visual over there that we had shared with the team. 100% of the students with whom we work on individual and group levels stayed in school. Our essential wheelhouse for the kind of work that we do is we build a coalition of champions around students, right? So that they can be ready to learn, right? Like if we were to synthesize exactly what it is that we do, is that we're not in the business of providing resilience. We elicit the resilience that students have within, and we provide the connections, the resources, and we broker any other I guess need to the group of champions that we have developed across the region. We had 9 site coordinators, reached and engaged a total of about 1,185 families, and provided on average 13 personalized interventions per student on their caseload. One thing that Red Heart is very important for us. We very quickly, I personally conducted a survey across all of the 10 school sites to see how the teachers and the administrators were being supported, and what messages were they receiving from the community. And to my surprise, there was a big disconnect between the students, the families, and the teachers and the administrators, principals, about how were they feeling, about the kinds of supports and the learning and encouraging messages. So we went to bat, with that gap. That's typically something we don't do, but in this very special year, we thought that it was extremely important to provide resilience to the adults who were providing resilience and learning and teaching to the students. So we personalized 350 thank you cards with messages that the students actually developed. We surveyed the students and we asked them, what would you like for your teacher to know? And we tailored basically note cards to each one of the sites and send them off handwritten. Our teams went to bat for this and provided that note of encouragement to all of the administrators and teachers with whom we worked this year. In the second panel of this visual as well, you'll see some of the general statistics. We actually did a great deal as well of one-on-one individualized supports. This number over here, the 114 case managed students, is actually about half of what we typically do on a given year. And the reason for that is that when we asked our partners what it is that they needed, what they said is that they definitely needed us to play more of a role of a bridge and a liaison between the students and the families. So in our model, we talk about the different tiers. So tier 3, which would be the essentially the school-wide. Tier 1 is school-wide supports. Each and every school site said that's where we would like for you to do the most support to each one of our school sites. So because of that, Tier 2, which is the affinity groups, or essentially the groups where students come by topic, life experience, identity, or whatever may unite them, that whatever affinity they have. That was definitely also another big success, for this year and highlight. And the individualized case managed students definitely was about half, because most of our efforts were providing, I guess, wider a range of supports. And if you keep scrolling down, you'll see we provided 227 basic need interventions, which includes clothing, food, school supplies, hygiene products, emergency house, and mental health referrals, and clearly anything that is that was needed at that point. And if you scroll all the way to the bottom, this was also, of course, right, the year of the national topic and the national conversation was how it is that how is it that we're going to be collaborating and basically pushing along with the school districts on their goals and aspirations on the front line with DEI. And we made sure that this statement was always kind of as the banner under which we did everything that, that we provided for this year. And quickly, if we click on the following banner, this is the disaggregated data for the impact at Skagit County. And what's exciting, I was asked, I guess one of the questions that I was supposed to answer today was, what is so unique about the connection to be part of the ACH? And if you keep scrolling down, you'll see the number of students we serve. And our heart over there, our highlight, is that we funnel into the community about $26,400 in dental sealing services provided at no cost to students ages 6 through 12 at 3 school sites. And that actually was, I guess, possible because we are part of the oral health lean with the ACH. We have a strong partnership. And what's even more impactful about this particular year is that we didn't even know if the program was going, we were in our second year, and we didn't even know if we were going to be able to provide the program, right? Because of the COVID restrictions and safety measures, etc. So against all odds, we serve 88 students, 3 school sites, 2 elementary schools and 1 middle school. And if you scroll down a little bit below, you'll see something that is very, I guess is heartbreaking. You see that out of the 70 case managed students that we did, right, 91% of those students are economically disadvantaged. We, like every other agency who was doing frontline work, we went to the houses and delivered boxes of supplies, food, etc. And in Skagit County, definitely, you could definitely feel and sense the exaggerated disparity that exists in terms of like economic distancing from people who are in a different, I guess, in a more are doing well. And then below, you'll see, for those of you who may be wondering, right, here are different tiers that I was referencing before. Tier 1, school-wide supports. Tier 2 is the small group supports, the affinity groups. And Tier 3 is the individualized supports that we provide. And that's basically it for us. So we definitely, what I would say, I will end the, this brief presentation is that of all years, this is perhaps the year where community building definitely made its stance and a big impact and presence within each and every school site where we were present, and it was felt. The feedback that we have received from each one of our partners is that they did feel across the year that the community, that there was a coalition of champions that was supporting their goals and aspirations for the year. And lastly, the last thing that happened, this year that kind of puts us in an excellent partnership, continued partnership with the ACH, is that we have Britt Rhodes is here with us, and she is our new regional dental sealant coordinator, and that's a new partnership that we have started this year with the ACH and the Oral Health Lane as well. Thank you for your time, and I hope that this has been informational for you, and feel free to reach out if you have any questions or any follow-up comments and or observations about what I've just shared.
Thank you, Ario. That was wonderful. And so exciting to hear about the new position. Congratulations. That's very exciting. Our next group is going to be Michaela and Amy. And Michaela's going to go first, and then Amy will follow. So Michaela, I'll just hand it off to you. And I think you've got some photos too. Perfect. Okay,
Yes.
take it away.
Okay, thank you, Nicole. So my name is Michaela Vendiola, and I am the Tribal and Community Liaison with North Sound ACH. I'm an enrolled member of the Walker River Paiute tribe, and I'm also Swinomish and Filipina, and I grew up on the Lummi Indian Reservation. I've been with the ACH for about 2 years, a little over 2 years now. First serving in a couple different roles, first as a project coordinator and then as a project manager, and now in my new role as the Tribal and Community Liaison. For about over a year now, one of the projects I've been supporting is focused on Native, Indigenous youth, young, emerging leaders as a group. More formally, our name is now the North Sound Indigenous Futurity Alliance. There are 3 main points that I hope you all walk away with about the work that we're doing. First, this was an identified need. Some of you may remember at our partner convening in January 2020, we had a young leader, Eliza Julius, stand up in front of all of us and ask why there wasn't more youth involved in the work. And so this space was created by and for these young leaders. The second is that after that ask, a great planning group came together with support from some of our other ACH partners, community initiatives, and Communities of Color Coalition, and of course, Children of the Setting Sun Productions. And my co-presenter, Amy, she can introduce herself, but she's an employee with Communities of Color Coalition, and it's just exciting to see the progression here. The third is that what we've been able to plan together, these events that are on the screen here, as well as having weekly, which transitioned into twice weekly meetings about planning and conversation of the importance of the work and how we want to relay that information, have been great to support the youth and help with capacity building in their endeavors. It's been so successful this last little over a year that for our next upcoming large event, the second annual conference, we're excited to announce that we are going to have the Washington State Poet Laureate, Rena Priest, as our keynote speaker. So it's exciting news. The photos you see here on the screen are screenshots from the group. We haven't, of course, had any in-person gatherings, but these are just some of the faces that have been in attendance at a lot of our gatherings. The first in the top right corner was our first conference. And in the very top right corner of that picture is Dr. Evan Adams. He was our keynote speaker last year. Some of you might know him as Thomas from Smoke Signals. But really he's a MD, medical doctor for the First Nations Health Authority. The second picture, or the next few pictures, the youth listening session was the most recent one. And this wasn't a Alliance event, but we did support the planning, and some of the members that have attended our other events were in attendance there too. So it was exciting. And then of course, these other 2 that are labeled the poetry circle that happened. And what else? Oh, this vision board came from the Envisioning Indigenous Futures event. And these are just examples of some of the folks who've been impacted by our work. With that, I'll turn it over to Amy. Thank you.
Ishka Michaela, Asiam Nishalaja, Amy Sindasnat, Trevor Samish, Barrett Saos. So hello, and thank you, Michaela, for passing it over to me. And hello, everyone who's here. My given name is Amy Nichols, although my given nickname is Huachelli, which is the word for hummingbird given to me by my cousin, Sam Barr. And then I'm a member of the Barrett family of the Samish Nation, and I'm very excited to have been a part of the wonderful work that like Michaela and Elizabeth have helped to lead with the Futurity Alliance. So I started attending meetings in December of this past year, and what had drawn me to the meetings is the conference. So I didn't attend the conference, but I did receive a care package. And at the time I was working on San Juan Island, which is also known as Lahakamish, which is I was working as an intern in ethnobotany with the National Park Service. And I felt really cared for just receiving that package. And it ended up inspiring me to connect with Coast Salish artwork. So using the masks and the fabric markers that they had provided to make masks with Southern Coast Salish designs. And I started attending the meetings because what I felt about the space is that there was a lot of potential just to be supported. And there was such passionate people who cared about creating space for envisioning Indigenous futures. Now, I know that sounds kind of funny, but the reason that futurity is such an important word to me is that futurity is about the futures we create, right? As opposed to future, which is a passive term experience. Futurity implies intention and the ability to think about what the future should be and then enact it. And as Indigenous people, I think a lot of times we've been excluded from that narrative in the terms of the history of the United States because there was, the planned extermination of Indigenous people. So kind of having the Futurity Alliance be a space not only where we envision Indigenous futures, but we're incredibly inclusive. We have partners from, many different areas of Turtle Island, which is another word for the land that is the United States and Canada. And we also have had at our events not only members of tribes located in what is now known as the North Puget Sound area, which is also the Coast Salish territory, but also people who are Indigenous Hawaiian or of mixed Indigenous backgrounds, or also indigiqueer folks coming together to I think create the spaces that we envision are possible in the future as well. And those are spaces where there's respect for Indigenous languages, there's respect for people who are learning more about their themselves and their cultures, and an ability to engage in a way that is trauma informed and culturally informed. And it's been really awesome to be part of that work, both in the planning meetings where people are so kind, and I think there's a recognition of needing to care for people and then also still being able to get the work done. And then in the spaces, doing really things that are new to everyone. So for example, having the poetry circle was something that I was new to facilitating, but we had really positive responses, and we kind of allowed people to participate however they were comfortable. So cameras on, cameras off, write in the chat, pass the invitation to somebody else if you don't want to speak. And we took a lot of the lessons that we learned from that event and also applied them to the youth listening session. And in the end, I think that having that type of openness has also allowed more people to participate, because it just creates a safer environment where you know that you're going to be respected, and creates consent for everyone involved. So basically, I just wanted to say that this work would not have been possible without the wonderful planning and guidance of, Elizabeth, Michaela, Tiffany, Liz. Like, so many people have been supporting this work at the ACH and beyond. And it's been really wonderful to be part of that community. Hi, Shreya.
Thank you, Amy and Michaela, so much. I really appreciate it, and so looking forward to what's happening at the next conference. Can't wait to hear. I even told Michaela we have to do a mini one with our staff because I'm so excited. So I just want to offer just so much thank you to Polly, Ario, Amy, and Michaela. Each bright spot that I was hearing, kind of listening for a theme, is I think we really heard some humanity there, and really it's about working directly with people. I think you each used the terms listening, and I think our own organization, we did a lot of listening this year, and it certainly positively impacted the work that we are doing, and we needed to hear it. We've all had missteps, good steps, and we're kind of in that fail forward constantly type of mentality. But I just really appreciate the human touch that you all brought to the stories today, because that's really what it's about, the whole person right now. And Polly, I hoped that we got to work together differently, but we're still in it. And I think there's what I so appreciate too about understanding and hearing about the bright spots is that we are learning as we go. We're not out of this right now. Things have been brought to our attention much more at a community level that says we can't do this on our own as an individual organization. And so, as Aria was saying too, partnerships is key right now, and we're really seeing the benefits of that. So thank you all so much. And I'm going to hand it back over to Monty.
Wow. Well said, Nicole, and beautifully modeled, all of you who shared your bright spots. And we want to just invite all of you to do just the same in smaller groups. So again, reflecting on this past year, bright spot for your organization that you would like to share with partners, and also what you are really seeing as the real benefit or value of being part of this network. And so we have about 20 minutes. We'll take it to about 5 after, and want again to just encourage you to take a couple of minutes to make sure everybody has their bright spot story in, and maybe you can kind of continue to add to where you see the value of the network. And Tiffany, I think you, before we take us into the breakouts, did you have another explanation on something around the breakouts?
Yes, there are 2 folks on the phone. And if you're just on the phone, you don't have to do anything. But if you also have video, if you could send me a chat so I can make sure that your voice and your body end up in the same breakout room. And if you do get separated, just raise your hand when you're in the breakout room, and I will come find you and merge you with your voice.
Thanks for taking us magically into small breakouts, and we'll look forward to a dialogue on the other side in 20 minutes. All right, welcome back, everyone, as folks are coming back into the room. It's always fun to see who shows up on your screen. Right in the middle of my screen are Ben and Holly. Hey, Ben and Holly, good to see your faces. And
Yeah, Holly is back. I can't see Holly. Yay! Welcome back.
Welcome back. Thank you.
so I know we just have a little bit before we take a break, but would love if any of you would be willing to come off of mute. You know, if you feel like there was a bright spot that you have that you would like to share with others, or one that you heard, to give a summation of one of those. So just give you a minute to see who might kind of take that invitation up.
This is Leandria from Homage, and I just feel really uplifted by hearing all the positive stories of the great work that everyone has been able to continue doing, even amidst all this COVID and Delta and everything. And I just feel like the people have accepted the challenge and they're marching forward and not letting what's happening stop us from helping people.
Thank you for that.
This is Addie from Island Senior Resources in on Woodby Island. And I think it was very uplifting to hear how the ACH partners working through this time were able to make so many connections and realized the depth and of the organizations, different organizations would go to help each other and to help the community. Like it was a discovery, like a treasure chest they didn't know was there almost. And also that things that they were already working on kind of got highlighted and worked on more because the need during COVID really highlighted them. So some of the work wasn't new, but the attention to it was really highlighted and got worked on. So that was great to hear.
I'm fairly new in being involved with the North Sound ACH, but in the short time that I have been involved, I have been in awe, not only in the leadership and the staff at North Sound ACH, but the capacity that they have to bring such amazing partners together within one virtual room in a consistent fashion. Being through these partner meetings, being through the POC coalition meetings that they had. And so I would love for this to be replicated, not only within our state, but within our country, because these type of coalition and these types of partnerships are so incredibly meaningful and influential in improving the lives of our community members, and especially the most vulnerable populations in our region. So thank you for just everything and all the hard work your team does.
Thank you for sharing that. This is very hard for me as an extrovert to let you all sit there in silence. But what I appreciate folks filling that space. And so, you know, I don't know, just even phrases, ideas. I mean, I think those first three comments, you know, indicate what is the value of this partnership, particularly during these really unprecedented times, the strength, the depths of this network. What else did you hear in terms of just thinking about what's the value out of this partnership, not to be self-congratulatory, but just as a reminder of where we are and where we want to be heading, and keep with us. And I welcome anybody to come off mute, please.
One word. This is Sharon from Island Senior Resources. Innovation.
innovation. I heard a lot of innovative responses and kind of really pivoting during this time. Others, and again, for those of you who don't care to come off of mute, encourage you, what's a word or some phrases that come to mind that you heard?
I would, may sound a little silly, but one of the highlights or the kind of the uplifting spots for me from the ACH has been the cheerful emails from Liz, kind of reminding us to keep our heads above water, that we're all in this together, and being that little cheerleader in the back corner for us when you're all working so hard and we all have our nose down to the grindstone, and it was like, oh yeah, we matter too, and that little, hey, we're all in this together, you have some support. And then I would secondly add Pluto, the dog. I had never heard about Pluto living before and whooshing love. But after at one of these conference calls, I had Googled it on Facebook, I guess Facebooked it, whatever you call it, and have spread that to so many people. It's just the joy that brings. So I think the cheerleading and the joy has been a bright spot for me.
Thank you.
I want to echo that one word, Liz.
Liz, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I would just say that instead of individuality, it was teamwork. And that's what's made us successful, at least in my branch. I'm in the fire service. And to be everyone to drop the walls and forget about their kingdom and worry about the people through the ACH, through the fire chiefs, through you name it. We all came together as one to try to solve this problem of COVID, at least dealing with the pandemic. And I think we have been really quite successful. So I would like to thank everyone on this panel for all their hard work. So.
Thank you for that, Chris, and what you are doing. And I'm just seeing all these words around integration and community and generosity and learning and relationship. And, I know that those are just words, but I think there's a lot of meaning behind those words as folks are kind of putting those in there. And this resilience, I thought it was, if I heard Ario correctly, I thought it was interesting to not grow or build resilience, but to elicit resilience. So there is a natural resilience within our communities when we're together, and how do we draw that out? And it seems like through this teamwork and partnership, you all have been really drawing out some of that resilience. So appreciate that. And we also know that, being in Zoom is not always easy. So we wanted to make sure that we were breaking this up during these meetings. See some kudos to you, Chris, and a lot of others in your comments there. So Nika is going to actually lead us through a little bit of a break. So we're going to kind of simultaneously kind of have a little bit of a creative brain break that she'll lead us through, and also for the next half an hour have a little bit of a break. So encourage you all to kind of join Nika for the next 20 minutes. But if you need to take a break before then, that's fine too. We'll have a total of 30 minutes coming up here.
Great. Thanks, Monty. And this will only be part of our break, so you will get an actual 10-minute break at the end. So if you need that time, don't worry, you'll get it. So I'm going to lead us through a short activity that, my name is Nika Osteen. I'm the Data and Evaluation Manager at North Sound. And this is an activity that our team did back in May using poetry as a tool for evaluation. So everyone on the staff did it in May, and it was a really fun way to kind of do something creative, get out of our comfort zone, use our brains in a different way. And so we wanted to provide you an opportunity to do that today as well. So I initially learned about this at a training I attended through the Canadian Evaluation Society. And the training was around using art as a tool for evaluation. And they specifically talked about poetry and the benefits of using poetry, breaking down mental blocks, trying something different. We all stare at screens all day and spreadsheets and Word documents, and really getting out of that, trying something different. Poetry can also give you a chance to say something that might be hard for you to say or might be hard for someone to hear in a more creative way. And so we use this method to provide feedback to Liz and the leadership team about the future state of the ACH as we were working through crafting that. So we did a method of poetry called erasure poetry. You probably have seen this before. It's when you are given a document or a group of words, and then you can cross out words. So only the remaining words are what you read in the poem. So in a Word document, you might do this using the highlighter tool in either black or white, and highlight the words you want to get rid of, and then only the words that remain will be the ones you read in your poem. And then you read them in the order that they're already in the document. So this gives you an opportunity to pull out the key themes for you from that document and answer an evaluation question. And because you're using a source document, you're not creating your own words. So that might feel a little more comfortable for people who maybe aren't ready to create poetry on their own, or that's not how my brain works. So that would be something that I would feel uncomfortable doing, but you already have the words, you already have the structure, and then you get to pull out the meaning to yourself. It also gives you a chance to like get really familiar with the data. You're looking at this document pretty intensely to figure out what the words are and what those meanings to you are. So we are going to give you a chance to do this. But I first wanted to provide you an example from one of our staff. So like I said, staff were given a document that included excerpts from the future state planning and some of Liz's newsletter updates. And then we did the erasure poetry with that. This is David's poem that they wrote. And you can see David used the white highlighter tool. So it's just the white or the black words on the white background. If you use the black tool, you'll just see the black boxes over the words that you erased. So whatever style you want to go with for your poem. But this is David's here. It says, acknowledge humility in the unprecedented changes, fractures, and contradictions. The future ideas and collaborative backbone cross those structural power conditions. Honor community, lean on risks and changes. So what we're going to do now is I am going to put this document into the chat. Some of you might not be able to access it. It just depends what Zoom version you have. So if you can't pull up the document, Alicia's also going to put a link to the document on Google Drive. If you use the link, make sure to download your own copy, because otherwise, if one person edits that link, then nobody else can do the poetry. So make sure to download your own copy to work on. I'll get that document in the chat in a moment, and then go ahead, read through it, and then start erasing the parts that are least important to you to elevate the words that are most important to you. And so I'm going to give you 10 minutes to do this. Have you turn off your camera, spend some time with the document, work on your poem, and then we'll come back as a group and do a little reflection. This is the question that I would like you to reflect on, and I'll put it in the chat too, as you're reading through. So reflecting on the ACH's vision and role for the region, where do you see yourself in this? Craft a poem that expresses how you most want to be a part of this vision. So I will get that document in the chat. We will get the link in the chat. Alicia already got that in the chat for you. And then yeah, turn off your camera and we'll come back at 2:30. All right, I want to invite folks to start wrapping up and turn back on your cameras if you're done with your poem and come back to the All right, I'm seeing cameras start to come on, so guessing folks have wrapped up. I would just like to open it, see if anybody has any feedback, what they thought about using poetry as a tool for evaluation or tool for feedback, how it felt to you to look at something like this and be able to provide feedback for us in this way.
Like, I'll just share one thing I like, having done this with a group of folks before, is being able to see sort of how that group focused in on some core messages and where they were different and where they were similar. But there's something to doing this with your colleagues or with your team or in the community, using that one document and seeing where we all gravitate is a really interesting approach.
Yeah, and that was something that I was able to do, was take all of the poems from our staff and then pull out what is the word that, there was like 2 words that every staff member had in their poem. And so being able to quantify those poems and, quantify the meaning to people was really great. And then provide that feedback to Liz and leadership. And that's okay, Rick. You can, if you're not done with your poem, you have all the time in the world. And so if anyone didn't finish up, feel free to take some time today or tomorrow and finish that up. And yeah, I really appreciate everyone engaging with this. I know that poetry can seem scary. When I did this training myself, I know that I was a little resistant to the idea of doing poetry, and then actually really enjoyed it. So I appreciate everybody taking the time. Any other thoughts?
Yeah,
I just want to say I did do my homework. I'm just not tech savvy. I had to print it out.
Yeah,
that's all right.
Nika, the thing I was going to add is, especially since both for the staff thing and for this thing, you're using like something I wrote. It's fascinating to me that I can take something I wrote that took like a page and a half and cut it down to like 15 or 20 keywords. I mean, like it's a really fascinating exercise to find what's important, and I've appreciated it both times. So thank you.
That is what I looked at as well. And what I noticed, it really boiled down to keywords like acknowledgement, humility, some of those keywords that are in here. And I think if we all paid close attention to those, we would be a lot better. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, Nika, this is Charlene. I just wanted to share that as I read through the text, I found it to have almost a fluid effect. The more I read, the easier it was to start flowing through the words quicker and just thinking what fits, what didn't fit. So yeah, almost a fluid-like quality. Thanks.
Well, thank you for engaging. We would love to see your poems if you want to share. So if you need some time to wrap it up or do it on paper, Chris, and scan it, we would love to see those. So if you could send them to our team at northsoundach.org email, we'd love that. So thank you so much. And I think we have 10 more minutes for break.
Yep.
I'm old school, so it might come in the mail.
Sounds good. See you at 2:45, everyone. Thanks again, Nika.
as folks are wrapping up break, looking forward to stepping into this afternoon, the second half of the session together today. Give folks just a few minutes to get cameras back on where available. Perhaps stood up and stretched, refilled water bottles or glasses, petted your dog, a look at the sunshine, or finding a cool place to refresh as you all are experiencing the deep heat. I'm Stacy with Community Initiatives, as Monty mentioned perhaps at the top, and just super excited to be with you all here today and have gotten to travel with you over the last couple of hours. As we wrapped that session and sort of as Nika helped us think about and play with words, and as you all offered up some of the words that were really sort of resonating, that were coming up for you, I pulled 3 words from the robust list, and a couple of those that sort of rose to the top for me as themes were just the deep and rich gratitude for just the number of folks who have stepped up, from the staff and partners and families getting masks distributed successfully, to the just exceptional work in support of the students and staff and families as our students became virtual learners with their parents or families helping to support their learning journey. A second word that rose to the top for me was care, and just really this intentional web of care that you all have been weaving for community, for those who've been most deeply affected by the crises of the last year. And really the care of one another, whether it was the notes from Liz, or the care packages that went out in advance of the Futurity Alliance session. And the third word that rose up for me was intentionality. And I think sort of really embodied in what Amy and Michaela offered up for us in their, as young leaders, a really intentional choice of words for their Futurity Alliance, thinking about what the future should be and enacting it. And so just super excited as you all continue to think about the future and enact that together, to dig in a little bit around how we're on this continuous learning journey, and using and being in relation with one another to continue our learning, as well as how we're accessing and leveraging the best practices and stories of inspiration to continue down that path together. And to get us started, I'm super excited to invite Alicia into conversation with several additional partners who have been active on their learning journeys.
Thanks, Stacy. And yeah, I would echo everything you shared, that so much of what happens in this network to innovate, to find young leaders, to take action, it really does come from people working together, whether that's learning together and around a particular topic, whether that's forming a work group to address issues like access to care. There have been a lot of ways that the people joining today have made time, despite COVID and the challenges that presents, to make those connections and build action from those connections. And so super excited to have 2 people share a little bit about their experience working with other people in the network. And I have April Clark from Sunrise Services joining me, as well as Beverly Porter from the ARC of Whatcom County. And so we're just gonna have a small dialogue within our group to talk about what that actually means to be in partnership with other organizations, problem solving and learning. And as you hear things in this dialogue, feel free to chat and chime in if anything is really resonating from your experience over the past year, or things that you're hearing that you want to build on in the coming year. So with that, I'm just going to turn it over and invite each of our speakers to introduce themselves. And I'll start with Beverly. Would you mind sharing, you know, a little bit about yourself and your organization and the ACH group that you've been involved in?
Great. Hi, I'm Beverly Porter, and yes, I am with the ARC of Whatcom County and with Whatcom Taking Action. We're the lead agency for a community collaborative that is working to improve the systems of access and resources to healthcare services for children with special healthcare needs. And I know that's kind of a long definition around that, but many of you may be familiar with ARCs around the state and in the country of being advocates for people with developmental disabilities. So I'm a parent of 2 disabled adult children, one who's autistic and both are transgender. So I come to this work as a parent and a caregiver, as do many of my colleagues as well, who are individuals with some hidden or developmental disability themselves and siblings or parents. So we've been involved with the ACH since the beginning, really excited about it when news had gotten out about Medicaid transformation, because it's often that we see in some small and large movements that children can get neglected or not brought into the table in terms of some of the funding conversations or things to areas to approach. And as well, the energy that we have as advocates really wanted to keep folks with any disability, and particularly adults with developmental disabilities, but to make sure that we were still at that table and had access, had a ramp or an elevator and a power wheelchair to get to that table so we could participate in framing how we continue to provide services for one another. So it's so we've been involved with the Community Hub and involved with One Key Question and participating with care integration, care coordination, deeply involved in the community health worker activities as well throughout all of this. So that's a bit about me and the ARC.
Thanks, Beverly. And I'll invite you, April. Can you introduce yourself, your organization, and the ACH partner group or groups that you've been involved in?
Yes, thank you very much for having me and for asking how it's impacted our work here. My name is April Clark. I am with Sunrise Services, and I work with the Behavioral Health Program as their Quality Assurance Manager. So coming into this work, you know, there are a lot of conversations I'm part of and that I appreciate being part of, just so that I understand the value that everything has. And the one that I'd want to talk about today is actually our work with the North Sound ACH, the Oral Health Local Impact Network, the LIN. And so when we were having these conversations of really getting involved with dental care, especially for behavioral health, which you're looking at people with mental illnesses, you're also looking at people with substance use disorders. We realized that their access to care is even further away than some. They might have access via transportation. They might be living in outlying communities. And so because they didn't have the connection to dental resources, we had several conversations about how the providing dental care to those in rural communities, as well as some of even the counties that don't have Medicaid dental care available for people, we realized we needed to do something about it. So with our partnership there, we were able to make a proposal to be working with MTI and Healthy Smiles and soon Ideal Option to be providing dental vans that go on site to our clients so that our clients don't have to travel out. When they come in for their appointments, we have 6 dental clinics that are done in Oak Harbor, which provide more of a dental home. That's a county that has a really low amount of Medicaid provided services. And so our dental vans out there provide both the oral health care, so the dental needs, as well as the hygiene needs. And so we're more of a home base for them, as well as currently we also have Everett and Mount Vernon having 2 dental vans each of, so twice a year, there is a van that comes out there twice a year for those particular individuals. And we've tried to set it up so that people are coming in for both their appointment and for the care, for dental care. And in the way that we've designed, the way that we're providing the van in Everett and Mount Vernon, those are kind of to catch those that are waiting for appointments that need a dental home. And so we've really been able to do some outreach. We've got about 10 that are scheduled, and scheduling about 10 people per visit. So that's the opportunity to have 100 different visits for people that might not have gotten in to get their oral health care needs addressed.
Thanks, April. And I think what I really appreciate about having both you and Beverly chatting with us today is that you're mentioning some projects that are really far-reaching. There's accessing dental care, there's behavioral health integration, one key question related to reproductive health screening and work with CHW. So curious, and you kind of got into it a little bit, April, but how does working with, could you speak a little bit about how working with these kind of different groups within our network, how that aligned with your individual organization's work and or your particular project work within your own position?
Yeah, so it definitely aligned with the work. I mean, I have been with the company almost 2 years, and kind of all of the people that were working on the North Sound ACH have come and gone, so to speak. So so it was nice to kind of dive in and be able to have it actually be, instead of words and instead of just, just checking a box, you were actually able to dive in and do something about it. So, it allowed us to get closer to our goals of integrating care. We've been able to modify some of the processes that we use. So we have more robust assessment of a person's both not only dental needs, but their physical needs as well. So it's kind of meeting those aspects of the work that we do here in the North Sound ACH. So it's really allowed us to be able to collaborate with others and reach those people that we might not have reached before. It's allowing us to actually put it to work and have something tangible. And one of the things I wanted to share was after one of our last dental vans, somebody said we changed his entire outlook. I mean, this gentleman had needed, 8 to 10 pullings and extractions that needed to happen. And even just getting just a few of those extractions, he felt better about himself, and he felt better at having somebody listen to him and be able to, help him because of the needs he had.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, April. I know, as a behavioral health provider, maybe the first thing that doesn't come to mind but is dental, but really if you aren't in pain, you feel like your oral health is there, that can really have a huge impact on your overall well-being. So I appreciate hearing how you kind of worked with other members of the LIN, like MTI, to get the mobile dental care out to the folks you're serving. And I would be remiss if I didn't turn it over to Beverly and ask the same question. Can you share a little bit about how some of the different work you've been doing with the ACH, how you feel that's aligned with the broader work of the ARC?
Absolutely. I mean, there's a part of this that has felt as if it's been a confirmation and an affirmation for the work that we do, particularly with children and then with adults with developmental disabilities, to see things called out as action areas to continue to be work on. And as I shared, there's times where pediatric payment and service delivery have not been a major focus. And so we can feel really small and powerless sometimes. So being able to see in multiple areas how the integration of care and recognizing that whatever that disability may be, if there is one, or race or language, or whatever identity you are bringing as a person, as a client, as a health consumer, can be so colored by those other pieces. And one of the things that we see a lot is something called disability spread, and that is where a response that a community member, social services, or even a healthcare provider can make is by seeing a person as, oh, well, this is an adult with Down syndrome. So for that kind of stigma, then it completely sort of takes over their identity, that we don't look at them as somebody who needs oral health, and maybe some particular good pieces about that, but the disability spreads and in some ways covers or hides their a whole person. So it's been really, I mean, like I said, we can feel very small and powerless. And so to be able to be involved in each of the little and large pieces of this have been really affirming and confidence building, and to recognize that we're making some progress in so many ways. We were involved in the one key question training, and I appreciated that, having as a parent and as a parent of adults, and having worked in reproductive health before. I liked that it made me think differently about how I may speak with parents about a future pregnancy, because there is so much stigma and stereotype around developmental disabilities, and particularly for chromosomal and genetic conditions, that a parent may feel stigmatized or even some shame about a child that has already been born. So how do we talk with that person about the potential of future pregnancies? So it was really helpful for me as a person to look again at the things that I've been taught and cultured and socialized around about disability, even though I'm in this realm, to be able to confront those again and dismantle the ableism and other pieces around that. So as an agency, that's been really helpful.
Yeah, and one of the things that I'm just appreciative of as you both talk, and we haven't really gone into, is it's a lot of work, right? Like you mentioned, you both use words like action, like it being more than words, and I just know enough about the training around the one key question cohort. I know enough about the local impact network. This is more than one meeting. It's people, if you both and others, committing time to it in order to move that forward. And so I want to say that's one of the things that I have really appreciated, and know that moving that forward is a time commitment with others. And I'm curious, Beverly, maybe as a follow-up, something I was thinking when you were talking about how to have this conversation about future pregnancy is if there was an opportunity for you to bring your voice and expertise around having that conversation, say, with someone with a disability that may not have been on the radar of another person joining that cohort who traditionally focuses on a different population. So I'm wondering if in that learning, you had that opportunity to share your own voice and or maybe hear something from someone who has a different focus area that you were able to take away a different or unexpected learning.
Yes, and I think, we're all advocates in different ways for our communities. And so I knew that going into doing the one key question that I would bring up that idea that adults with developmental disabilities are sexual. that they have needs to be connected, to belong, and to not be othered. So I knew there was going to be some sharing that I may do around that within the training, and even with the folks who have designed and crafted and created that training that went back to, you know, their upper level of, oh, we can look at this in a different way. How are we approaching this in terms of supporting all the spectrum of humanity around sexuality and reproduction? So that one of the things that I just feel like carried me through all of these things, including in that training, is the work of John Powell and the Haas Institute and Othering and Belonging. I had been following that to a great deal before ACH began doing some of their work. And belonging is an issue for all of us. So I think it's, you know, certainly it's this underlying theme that is important to each of us in so many ways, and is part of our health to know that we're contributing, we are welcome and belong here, that that you are important and that you matter and you're valued. So the opportunity to impact through One Key Question and through other conversations has been really remarkable, and obviously it gave me some chances to advocate, but also to reflect on what other parts of the system, that medical model about disability that sees the person, the patient, as somebody who needs to be fixed or cured, and within that medical model not seeing that stairs are the problem, we should build a ramp. We can do other things to create access for folks. And so going back to John Powell and the whole idea of, do we even need a table? Who's not at the table and why are they not at this table? Do we want them to help build a different table for us? Do we even need that table? How do we go to them to say, can we belong with you even? And can we connect in that way and find out how we work together? So I know that might sound really the philosophical and some of those deep, meaningful pieces, but that's part of what carries us through. And I think that might ring true for many folks.
Yeah, and I think as someone who works at the ACH, it's so helpful to hear and be reminded that if as a network we are talking about othering and belonging, about John Powell's work and targeted universalism, if we have that shared understanding going in, we can just move that much quicker, right? We're not all trying to explain what it is all the time, but really how can we weave it into the work that we're focused on. And maybe that's, again, that might be something that you're not quite expecting going into it, but it comes from this work with others who share those values. Yeah. Hope I'm not putting words in your mouth.
No, that's okay. And there's this other part of it too that, and this may be, some of you may be very pragmatic, others of you may be idealist. There's a strong part of me that's very idealistic when we became involved in this, that we wanted to do this in terms of advocacy and in terms of moving systems and policies forward. And I had this idea in my head, we are gonna transform Medicaid. And by the end of this process, there will be value-based payment for every developmental screening. And for all these these developmental evaluations and the other pieces that are inherent in medical delivery. And so not sort of unexpected, but also recognizing that systems are really slow to change, and it takes us all working together, and then reminding myself, yes, Beverly, you're an idealist, and that's why you're still here.
I love that, and I appreciate the idealism you are bringing to our groups as well. I'm wondering if, April, you're hearing anything that rings true for you, or if there are other things that were unexpected, that you had one idea coming to initial local impact network meeting, and then as you moved through networking with folks, connecting to actually have the outcome of bringing mobile dental care to your clients, were there things in that process or in that collaboration with the Oral Health Local Impact Network that you hadn't expected, but still took something away?
Yeah, so I think that hearing the data and how sparse it was, dental care, like across the entire region, I mean, it was eye-opening. So, I think that one of the big like takeaways I took was, even as just I'll consider us just a small piece of the puzzle, even just that small piece to be able to, help benefit the lives of, all of the individuals coming in. And them being able to get the care that they needed, not having to wait 3 months or not having to travel to another county in order to be seen. So I think it was just the partnership in how well we came together, how we got things flowing, how we've been able to modify, like on the fly, even on the fly sometimes, right? To try and fill spots or to try and get the people seen. And so I really just took in out of this entire thing, we've been able to modify our processes or what we'd like to do for 2022 forward. We've been able to modify our processes as we've gone along to have, and I'll call it the most bang for the buck, right? And so to make the most impact with the least amount of money, with the leveraging of the resources. But so I think I was just expecting to just be another project. I wasn't expecting to make such a big difference. And I think that that's the eye-opening experience. I mean, outside of even the LIN, one of the things that I shared earlier about, about working in the North Sound ACH, the entire network, is the fact of how we break it up into chunks, right? And then we've all got our work groups, but then we come back to the table, we do the brainstorming, we actually have the actionable items. So, breaking it down is nice, but then putting it back together and how it impacts everybody. So, and that's not just the work of even only the LIN, it's the work of, like Beverly's talking about, the one key questions, is the work of the diversity, equity, and inclusion that you guys have had, the work that we have with the tribal partners. It's everything, and the fact that we can come together.
I really appreciate that, April, and I think you're bringing up a lot of good points, that these things are interconnected. The data can be helpful to move them forward and to kind of target where to go next. But there are a lot of pieces to bring together. And, I always think about how when I hear words like transformation and innovation, it's not my colleagues and I sitting at the North Sound ACH office figuring out what our region needs. It's us hearing what you and other folks on this call are saying and seeing where there's some connections between, say, something that Beverly said with something that April has said, with something that another person has said, and is there enough common interest and or kind of shared priorities that it makes sense to bring a group together to, again, creatively problem solve and have some shared learning. So I do really appreciate you both just sharing a little piece of what that's been for the past year and putting that work together. And, I want to, again, open it up. If I've been seeing a lot of chats, just really appreciating you both and what you're saying. So I do think it's resonating. And I know that it's going to continue to inform what we at North Sound ACH do, because we are committed to continuing to plan these ways of coming together that is useful and helps you move the work forward that you're already doing. And so with that, I think, are there any other things that we didn't get to that you would like to share with this group?
No, it's all good. Thank you again for allowing me to
that.
talk a little bit on the LIN.
Yeah, well, thank you. Go ahead.
I'm just so grateful that we've continued to be involved and have this. I think many of us might have seen staff come and go, particularly in the last year and a half. And the partnerships are continuing. So that, we've seen one of our staff members began working as a community health worker and got more and more involved on the state level in helping to move that work along. And so the progress that has been made might be hidden in some ways. It might not be as visible as some folks want it to be. And so having an opportunity to come together again like this and share those bright moments, the unexpected and the expected, is really helpful.
Well, thank you. And I think that just reminds me again, some of this work does take time. It's big, it's complicated, and that continued effort is something that we really want to support. And I think one of the ways we've been looking at how do we keep doing that, not just through convening like this, but through individual tools, is with a knowledge management platform that we've been developing. And so I think with that, I'm going to turn it on back to Stacy to reflect on some of what we talked about and also share a bit more about that platform.
Yeah, thanks so much, Alicia and Beverly, and April is tremendous. And as I'm hearing so many rich pieces within your all's story, as you name staff transition, really the power of the network to provide some sustainability to, increase continuity and sort of accelerate, bringing in of new team members. Also really heard a lot about what you all have been able to do together as organizations that perhaps you couldn't have done alone, as you, deliver a more sort of whole person centered care in your work. And then Beverly, you named targeted universalism, among other things. And so that, constant learning, as you noted, to continue to move collectively towards a more substantive systems change. So just, again, so powerful to reflect on all that has occurred, and just really excited to be able to preview today a new tool to that hopefully will continue to help support that. And was informed, as so many things are in the deep, rich work of the North Sound region and across the partnerships, sort of reaching back, as we all have been in a number of ways, back to sort of early 2020, when there were, I think, 33 of you across 24 organizations who volunteered additional time to participate in some, small group dialogues to think about, what's working about the way that we're, learning and sharing and exchanging, and what else might we need. So super excited to share and reflect back to you, hopefully, what you shared with us, and to, again, offer a preview of a new tool to help carry the work into 2022. Next slide, please. We, of course, started sort of the two sides of the coin, and the people and the way that you all do the work together. And the second side of that coin are, what are the resources? What's the tools? What are the data that are needed to help, inspire us for stories of progress that are, needed to help move us into implementation, or to build knowledge around sort of an emerging, idea or opportunity. And so as we think about the tools in your all's current ecosystem, and I'm sure that there are a number more, but as we think about sort of those core tools across the partnership, being the North Sound ACH website, your partner reporting portal, the variety of ways that you currently do resource and referral sharing. And one of the things that was lifted up is, a need to be able to centralize and to better organize the knowledge, the seminal documents, the news stories, et cetera, that, again, continue to help build capacity and advance the work. So let's dig into that for just a moment. So among the things that we heard and feel free, Erin, to kind of unpack this and I'll work to keep up there. A couple of things that really sort of floated to the top was, that wanting a space to be able to both do discovery. What's new, what's emergent in ideas, what can I learn? Or if I'm focused on something, that I'm actively working on, how might I bump into the adjacent things that are also sort of important or sort of multi-solving in my work? Also, we heard, we really want the opportunity to be able to do some deeper learning, and, an individual article is good, a worksheet or a toolkit is good, but how do we stitch those things together in a meaningful way to actually become more of a bit of a formal learning path? Y'all shared that, again, this work is hard. It's big work. And, some days we just need a good story of inspiration, just as been shared in our conversations today. What's working with folks? As well as sort of where have we stumbled or stubbed our toe, and what are folks learning from that, so that we might not, we might be able to sort of get around those stumbles as we move forward and spread the work. To provide resources that will help you move sort of beyond the theory. Again, we, love soaking up and learning what's new, what's the latest framework, but how do we now take that? Or, we're there with targeted universalism, for example. How do we really put that to work? So how do we move toward implementation? As it follows your, your practices and your values that you all have named in so many ways today, that this work, takes a village, takes a region. And so whatever is developed in the way of, resource sharing and tools, to have that become accessible, that, all partners, sort of formal and informal, can access that content. And then a simple practicality of, please don't make a password protected. We don't want to have to remember one more password. That we want to also avoid being a static place. There's so much coming each and every day, so much rich content. What should I be paying attention to? And, making sure that that listicle doesn't look the same each time I return. What's new? What else should I be listening, watching, taking in? And really the opportunity at its core to build, continue to build on the deep capacity for all. Next slide, please. And Erin, thanks. Feel free to go ahead and unpack those as well. As we think about sort of the capacity, really kind of looking at it kind of from these 4 different directions. One, managing resources. What's our capacity to be more, efficient? We all get a ton of email, the latest, article or tool, which team member did that come from? Which meeting did I pull that from? And having to dig back through, I know I do all too often through my email to try to find that. So how can we better manage and centralize resources? How can we organize that content into actionable topics? So again, where are there some affinities? Where are there some opportunities for multi-solving? And how can the pathways that we take sort of on a platform help us find those things and move within those spheres? Erin, in just a few moments, will share with us what we call collections. And again, that really building on and building stepwise content into sort of smaller discernible chunks. As partners, you all looked at some of the tools and resources that are available publicly already on Community Commons, and you were like, this is terrific. But it's like, it's still, a bit of a fire hose. So how, for our region, do we break that up so that we can walk along with those steps, based on where we are on the path? And really, how do we integrate? We talked about the ACH website. We talked about the reporting portal and other. So when I'm, in one area, in a new platform, I want to be able to hop back over to the ACH website as needed. And so we'll look at how that will be made possible. Next slide. Just double clicking, because the other side of this could be like, oh no, not another new tool. But really what we're working to do is to help sort of each of these tools and each of these platforms do what they can do best. The team at North Sound ACH is currently working on a wonderful refresh of the website, and we've been working with them to harvest the best of resources and past learning sessions, et cetera, is currently hosted on the website, and getting those over onto the knowledge management platform, as well as those resources and again, files and listicles that were available in the partner portal, and getting those harvested so that they can be brought to one place. So the partner portal can be used for reporting. The North Sound ACH website will still be all things North Sound ACH, the history of that, the business and administration. So your board minutes, governance documents, announcements for events, things that are like, real time, you'll still be able to find on the website. And that will have some interaction and again, pathways to move between, so that that knowledge management platform really is focused on what are the resources. If you had to jump out today or can't join us until partway through tomorrow for the convening and really want to take a look back at that, getting that at the top of the page in the resource management so that you know where to find and access the video from the most recent tribal learning session or again, convening. Videos, stories, collections, again, sort of all things content headed over to the knowledge management. And what, better rather than sort of hear about it than to be able to see it. So I'm super excited to be joined by our colleague, Erin Barbaro from the Institute of People, Place, and Possibility, adding another voice to the work, and excited for Erin to preview, to do a little bit of a light demo. And as sort of in good work, and we'll hear about it, we'll see it, and then we're going to get to do it. We're going to jump in together in a few minutes and be able to explore. So Erin, handing off to you.
Terrific. Thank you, Stacy. We're excited to give you guys an update today and a little bit of a preview of the site, and we'll have a chance to jump into it. And just to build on what Stacy said, just really grateful that we had the opportunity to have the dialogue and listening sessions with all of you a little over a year ago. It was wonderful to see so many faces again and today, and looking forward to sharing what we've created. Before I jump into the demo, I did want to talk a little bit about the two pathways. So as you heard what Stacy reflected back from what we heard in the learning sessions, there emerged kind of two different pathways that we wanted to make sure that the website we created supported. Those are discovery and learning. Those are kind of the two themes that we heard. Discover being more around browsing, searching, exploring resources and topics. We definitely heard that loud and clear, for all the reasons Stacy just mentioned, having a resource and a place to house and explore those things, discover new pieces as they're emerging, whether those are stories or more specific implementation tools, learning session videos, etc. But then there was a second pathway that we wanted to support, which was learning. And that's really taking all of those pieces of content and organizing them in a way that builds knowledge and capacity and creates a little bit of a scaffold or a learning pathway for those that might be new to the topic or new to the network as a whole. So as we go and take a look at the site, I just wanted you to have that kind of those two pathways in mind. So I am just going to pull it up. All right. So this is the knowledge management tool preview that we're going to walk through today. And I'm just going to give you a nice little guided tour. And then as Stacy said, we'll take some time for you guys to actually poke around in there and see if you can find some resources. So what we're looking at here is the home page. And before we dig into it, I'll just point out the navigation here at the top. We have that learn pathway, the discover pathway, and then we'll go take a look at the about and the search area as well. And as you saw from the Venn diagram, you can connect and jump over to the North Sound website and vice versa. Eventually, we'll have those kind of two pathways, so we'll be able to navigate between the two. But here's a place to connect, coordinate, and collaborate across the different learning teams and discover and learn together. So what we have here at the top of the screen is a nice place just to feature. You'll see here what's new and featured. So you see here a tribal learning series. We'll usually focus on that. We'll have Thriving Together learning series, so the most recent video. So if you missed an event, you should be able to come here and kind of see what's recent and get access to those. Whether those are videos or slide presentations, etc. We also will feature whatever is the newest kind of learn, and we'll come back to this, but this is where you can kind of find what's new. And then we have another section to just sort of spotlight. Maybe that's a national spotlight that's come up. Maybe it will make its way into the some of the other collections, but it's kind of another place where we're able to spotlight a new piece of content or learning. So scrolling down, we also have some featured resources. So again, when we think about all of the information, we wanted a place to archive it, but we also wanted to make it easy to actually pick out kind of what's new, what's fresh, what's featured. So here you can see we've featured a couple of resources, and the North Sound ACH team will be doing this moving forward. And you'll be able to actually click on any one of these, and this will open up a quick little preview, tell you a little bit about the item, and then learn more. So if you actually contribute a resource to this, it will remain on your website. So if it's something that your organization wants to share, it's going to remain there. This is just going to be a pointer. So you'll still be driving, any people will be exposed to your content, your organization, but it just puts a little reference point here. So we definitely want to encourage that resource sharing so that we can learn together. And then below we have new resources. So when Stacy was talking about what we heard, one of the big things was it needs to be fresh, it needs to be updated. I need a reason to continue to come back to this. So this is dynamic. So anytime something new is added, this will update. So every time you come to the site, hopefully you'll see something new here on this section, and you'll be able to jump in and explore that item. And I'll just show you an example again. When you click on any of these, it's just going to open up a little bit of a preview and then a link for you to go in and dig into it a little bit more. So here we have a little mini version of our Discover pathway. So the Discover area is featuring topics that we're all working on and learning and focusing on together through our learning. So here in the homepage, we've just picked out a couple example topics. And then when I go to the Discover page, you'll see all of them listed. So I'm going to kind of scroll past this one for now because we're going to dig into each of these, or at least all of the topics that are available when we go to the Discover section. Then we have an FAQ section. So this will also continue to grow as we learn from you what questions you may have and from those in your community. So these are just a few kind of top 5 FAQs that we have that you can explore. And then on our About page, I'll point you to that in a moment, we have many more FAQs. So as you guys ask questions, as folks in your organization ask questions, we'll continue to grow this list. We have a suggest a resource. So we have started with a kind of audit of the resources that are available on the North Sound website, the partner portal, and through some of our participation in these learning series events and through just our support with some of the collections on the Commons, but certainly not everything. So we hope that this will continue to grow and expand. So we definitely encourage the inclusion and the recommendation of resources. And also what's not there, maybe you don't have the resource, but you'd like us to find it. So being able to say, I'm looking for this, I don't have it, but can you point me in the right direction? So that kind of experience is definitely something we'd also like to encourage. And you can sign up to stay updated. This will also be connected with the North Sound ACH mailing list. So we heard this morning how great and positive the messages that you get from Liz and team are. So this is just another place, if you're not already getting those messages, that those even expanding beyond may want to stay updated with new content and features. It gives you kind of another way to learn more. And then you can visit the North Sound website and the YouTube or go to the About page here. So that's kind of the quick preview of the homepage. Now I'm going to go and take a look at the Discover area. So we're doing this a little bit out of order, but I want to kind of show you the building blocks first before we dig into the learn area. So the discover area is a way we can lift up topics, content around specific topics. So we have, just like on the homepage, we've lifted up a couple. So what you see featured here may change depending on when you come. We have a simple search. So before you even dive into individual topics, you could just come and you could search for a particular topic. I'll just search for COVID, for example, and then this is going to pull up anything with that keyword, and then you can browse through that content. But back on the Discover page, maybe you don't have a particular keyword, you just have a whole topic that you'd like to explore. So you can see we have a number of different topics here. They're in alphabetical order with a little bit of a preview, and this topic list will probably grow as the work evolves. We hope it will grow, so you should see new things here. Let's just go ahead and click on one. I'm going to click on the targeted universalism topic. So you can see here we have a number of individual resources that come up, and we can browse through those. And then, similarly with the other resources that we've seen in the past, you can click on those and go jump into the original source to learn more. So back on the Discover page, get back there real quick. There we go. Okay, so we were down here in the bottom and we went through and browsed all the topics. I mentioned how you can search here as well, but then I did just want to point out that we do have a couple of featured topics. So these will change each time you come. This is just a way for us to kind of lift up maybe a topic that has a particular focus at the moment, or maybe there's been some new fresh content. Maybe it's aligned with a recent learning journey. And that's an example, then you're going to kind of get a quick link to jump into that particular item here. So you should recognize some of these resources that maybe in the past you found on the North Sound ACH website. And many, as you saw in the Venn diagram, many will still reside there, but we'll also continue to kind of, depending on the nature of the content, it may go in one place or another. And then we'll try to organize those in some of these learning journeys. Just showing the About page real quick. This is just a nice place to go to learn a little bit more about the platform. Again, if you need to communicate it with others in your network or organization. What is this? How does it relate? Who built it? What are resources? What should I, maybe I have something I want to contribute. I'm not sure it's a fit. You could take a look here. What did we hear from participants during the dialogue sessions that informed this? How can I use the platform? So again, this is our starter set of FAQs, and we'll continue to grow these as we hear what questions you and other users may have. And then just wanted to point out this little magnifying glass here in the upper right corner. So if you click on this, this is just going to open up a little search window. So we can type in a keyword. I could type in equity for an example. And again, it's going to pull up a list of resources. So if you think of these individual resource cards as kind of the building block throughout the site, what we've done here is we consider that the knowledge, and then we've created a couple different pathways to get to that, get to those building blocks, get to those resources, whether that's through that discovery or through the learn. And that's where I'm going to go next. And this is an area where we're very excited. So the learn pathway is a way for us to take all of these building blocks and build them into some structured, organized kind of learn pathways so that you could share this directly with maybe a new team member, or if there's a new topic, you can dive into it yourself. And it's really a way for us to capture all of the great learning that's been happening through this network over time and continue. You can see we have 2 of these learning topics right now. We're just getting started. We're super excited to continue to add those. And this will be co-created with this network. So as you guys tell us what you want to learn about, we'll be able to support that work. So this is an example of one. This is belonging and civic muscle. You can see that in this particular case, there's kind of 3 individual chapters, and you can dig into one and it's going to present the information in that kind of collection format that Stacy mentioned. So tell you a little bit about the topic, and it's going to give you a couple of resources, tell you a little bit more, and give you some additional resources. So you can kind of browse through this, and we've tried to make them short. Some of the feedback that we heard from our listening sessions is by, smaller, take a topic, break it down into smaller bite-sized pieces, and go from there. So that's kind of where we started. And you can continue learning. So if you click on this Foundations of Belonging and Civic Muscle, this will take you to kind of that next chapter. So you can continue to browse through that and dig in. And as I said, these are a couple that we've started with, but very, very excited to collaborate and think together about, you know, where we could dig in and create some additional learning journeys. So with that, I'll turn it over to Stacy if there are other places you'd like me to explore.
Yeah, thanks, Erin, for walking us through and just noting Beverly named, so she's excited to see the measures information around well-being and how to measure well-being as they're stepping into that work. And Rachel, Lucy, pretty fancy. So super excited to get folks in here and tooling around in just a moment. So speaking of the measuring well-being, thanks for setting that up, Beverly. Would love to dig in a minute around that particular learning journey, and as well as sort of add Megan's voice to the room, as you've been one of the North Sound ACH staff members who've been really helping us think about what's needed as you've been on a learning journey, and acting as a bit of a coach and a support for others who are looking at what it means to measure well-being, what are the tools that are available, and what might make sense for you all as organizations and region and as a region. So Megan, just really curious, sort of as we jump in here, how are you thinking about using the well-being measurement collection?
Yeah, thank you. So as you mentioned, well-being measurement and well-being assessment is something that I've been working on for several months. And I kind of started doing my own research and trying to find the tools and trying to find, case studies and, those inspirational stories that folks were asking for in these learning collections. And then seeing kind of some of those resources come together into this learning collection makes it really exciting to dig into it with other people, because they're not going to have to do all of that groundwork. It's all kind of right there. So the tools are right there, and it's set out in such a way that you can kind of first dig into like the why would I be interested in doing this? So that's a collection. And then there's a second part that's, these are the tools that will help you do it, and how can I actually like get into the nitty-gritty of implementing this work? And so that's a collection. And then there's also, case studies of other folks who have done that work. And so I'm really excited to dig into this with some other partners, and then continuing to grow that together as we go through the process and start seeing where some of those gaps might be. And so it's going to be a lot of kind of give and take between what's available, the resources, and the people that are actually using the resources.
Yeah, I really appreciate you lifting that up. And to sort of Erin's note, everyone said, let's not have this be static. So what are we learning? How does it need to change? And as the work, progresses, or the learning progresses, it's, we always bump into something else. There's another piece sort of the puzzle that we need. And as you've had, just some limited time to start to interact with this sort of in the background as helping us do some of the early testing, what are you seeing perhaps already that's, needing to be added?
Yeah, one of the things that kind of jumped out at me is one of the benefits of doing well-being assessments is being able to really target which communities are thriving, struggling, and suffering. And then once you are able to see that data, using targeted universalism to kind of approach how to lift people up. And so right now there isn't a connection between the well-being measurement page and the targeted universalism page, but that's something that we've already started talking about, making that connection. And I think that I see that with a lot of the different topics, is there's so much overlap in the things that we're trying to learn and the things that we're trying to do, that we're going to start being able to make those connections a little bit more explicit through linking on the resource pages. And then again, those inspirational stories. So as more folks start doing this kind of work, doing well-being measurement, being able to hear from them and then turn that into a resource is also something that's really exciting and I think is going to be really valuable moving forward.
Yeah, really appreciating that. And a couple of things that I'm hearing there is sort of, as the work continues, again, what are we learning? What stories are we catching? Being able to bring those back in. And we've got sort of the science of thriving learning journey. And as you named targeted universalism earlier, it's like, we can continue to build collections. So, those companion collections and continue to build out those variety of arms. As you do your work in a variety of work groups, and of course, Beverly and April talked about the way that their teams are working. I'm curious, Megan, perhaps starting with you, and if Beverly or April have thoughts about how you might use the tool as you go forward with your work groups.
Yeah, so for me, it's really just kind of getting that hands-on, the explicit, like, this is how you can implement this work, I think is really helpful, where it's not just the theory. That's one of the things that was called out in Erin's presentation. The feedback that we got from people as we were building this out was take something from learning and theory and move it into implementation and action. And I think that that's the most exciting part for me.
Fantastic. Welcome other comments or ideas from across your work or work teams. But Beverly or April, any sort of initial thoughts for your work with the Lynn or others?
I really appreciate this. One of the connections I'm putting together is, we have to write grants. We need to be able to give information out there. And so having a place where there are those resources to be able to have citations and have information, but also that piece that, I can say that the Stanford Institute has a great deal of different projects, and I use some information economically related to well-being and use that kind of measure to be able to look at health, because that's part of what dealing with disability is about health. But United Way wants it tied to income improvement and that kind of well-being. So having a place to go and wade through some of that, and maybe not quite so many things, that it's more focused, to be able to tie that together is incredible. It's, it makes it easier, but it also, the other, just to feel good about it, is we're working on the same stuff.
Yeah, and from a lifelong learner standpoint, like I always like the fact of learning something new every day. And I think Megan said, that first step is kind of why, like, why do I want to, what does this have? What's the value? Why do I want to know about this? And I think being able to take into account, why might I want to dig deeper? And then having the opportunity to dig deeper, and then really seeing what are some examples of how it was used? How can I make this work for my organization or the work that our organization is doing as this part? And be able to use those as stepping stones, right? We don't need to recreate the wheel. We've got something that we can learn from and then improve upon. So in our own work. So I think that this is going to be an extremely valuable learning system.
Well, we're collectively super excited to see how what you all add and how you all continue to co-create it over time. And perhaps let's take the first step with that together. And Elizabeth is going to help us out and drop in the chat the link, so that from your phone or computer, if you have access, and or Erin will also be kind of taking us through if you're not able to sort of work across sort of multiple tabs, et cetera, depending on how you're plugged in today. But as you get the link to go on to the site today, we'd love for you to use the top navigation to visit the Discover page. You saw Aaron share a variety of topics, vital conditions from humane housing to meaningful work and wealth, basic needs healthcare. We'd love for you to hop onto the Discover page and hop into a favorite topic or a topic you're working on or want to learn more about and see what is returned. Kind of take a moment to scan over the cards and resources and podcasts or videos that sort of are returned for you, and would love you to select a title. So highlight a title, one that sort of sparked your interest, one that you'd love to go back and perhaps dig a little deeper around, and then drop that into the chat. Now, when you paste that in the chat, would love for you to paste it, but not yet send, so that everyone who's, as they're taking their first few minutes to explore, they can do so without the FOMO in the chat of what are they missing. And then we'll do the, sort of shared cascade after everyone's had a few minutes to explore, find something of interest, and share that in the chat. All right, I'm ready if you're ready. So Elizabeth, if you wouldn't mind, you've got that out there for everyone. Awesome. Folks may be well on their way. I'm the one running behind perhaps. Take just a few minutes, hit the Discover page, jump into your favorite topic, find a resource of interest, and then drop it in the chat, but hold it for just a few minutes. All right. We're going to take really sort of 5 or so minutes, give you a chance to wander around, explore a bit. As you do your exploration, only needing to grab one resource of interest to share in the chat, but not until we do our collective send, if you would, please. Just another sort of 60 seconds, perhaps another minute. Perhaps you found something that you're enjoying already and taking a moment to read. All right, if you'll use your reactions and throw a thumbs up for me into your frame to let me know that you've got your title selected. Awesome, great progress there. All right, let's go ahead and make sure those are in the chat and let them roll. I love it. Love how you're hitting at different levels, even, a topic that was of particular interest, like at the, deep dive on the basic needs for areas to the Indigenous research paradigm, chronic disease self-management. So both at the topic level and some of the individual articles. Could the latest in medical treatment be a roof? All right, connecting with housing and health. Love it, love it. Well, we look forward to seeing what sort of floated to the top for you first, and as a team thinks about what gets featured in the upcoming months. Awesome, they continue to roll. Issue briefs to inform development and implementation of the Healthy People 2030, which has picked up well-being as one of the measures and is pointing to the vital conditions. We're super excited about that. All right, more oral health, fantastic. All right. Now, one of the other things that we've lifted up and that Aaron hit, and Beverly, you named, April yourself as well, is really the strength of this learning space will be as rich as that with which we all contribute to it as we continue to learn. And so that opportunity to be able to share and recommend resources directly onto the site. So we'd love to take a few minutes. It's not necessary to make the recommendation directly in the resource card today. We can do this in the chat together, but would love for everybody to take a couple of more minutes. Again, think about, prepare your chat, but don't hit send quite yet. If there's a specific resource you'd love to see added, maybe you've got something tagged or bookmarked that you've been reading, the latest on oral health, the latest around humane housing. If you've got those bookmarked and would love to see those added in this space, add that to the chat. If you just have some ideas about topics, boy, I've been struggling with this or stuck here, something you want to make sure shows up as we continue to build resources out, please add that to the chat. If you've got a favorite website that's, again, strong with data visualization, or Beverly, as you named, provides data from a different lens that is helping to write, grants or, tell the story of your work, feel free to share that with us. So anything, an inspiring or interesting podcast that's helping to support the work or to keep you going on difficult days, would love for you to do that. So again, take just a few minutes, comb your, the latest email from your friend, your favorite bookmarks, your podcast list, and take a few minutes, get that in the chat, but don't hit send just yet. And appreciating the conversation in the chat as well. Both, I think Lauren lifted up for us that she did a search for oral health, and currently there are 2 resources there. Know that this is just but a beginning, and we started with harvesting the key resources off of the website that were already existing. There are lots of other ideas from the staff and partners, and look forward to bringing in what all you all lift up and offer today. So super excited about that. And Michaela already sort of raising a hand around helping support a lot of the requests around the tribal learning and Native resources. So appreciating that as you all are finding some favorites to share here in just a moment. take just another minute, because this is just but a beginning, again, for this collection. As you've got the resources you're wanting to share, use your reactions again to give me a thumbs up, help me see where we are. All right, still digging up some favorites. Oh, all right, loving it. These certainly can be core resources from your organizational websites that are relevant to the work groups or other advances across the partnership. All right, if you've got yours loaded, let her roll. Fantastic, some pieces to help us strengthen the oral health work. Data collection. Oh, a number of lists of podcasts. I know that there are a bunch of podcast fans across these groups, and I know across our staff, so always excited to see those come in. Early childhood health. The Thriving Together Springboard for Equitable Recovery and Resilience. Super exciting. So appreciate everyone's contributions. Feel free to continue to add as we go forward in our time together today, keeping that rolling. As we are closing out perhaps sort of this segment, wanted to reach back and Alicia, as you helped, create a space to have the conversation about the, the work that the people are doing to be learning and sharing together. Wondering if you've got additional thoughts or what's coming up for you as we stitch sort of the people and the platform together.
Alicia, are you muted? Are you still there?
Thanks, Liz. I'd lost her square. That's all right. There were a couple of other questions. Let me hit right quick before we circle back there. Then there was a question about when this will launch. The web address that you have will allow you to access the tool, and you can, use the tool starting this afternoon and beyond. We will be working in the coming months to get a more permanent URL with Liz and team. And be able to bring in again some of these additional resources that have been lifted up. So I will open the door to if Liz or Nicole would like to sort of name a target, but I know that we'll be rich and rolling in 2022, and you'll have a bit of a backdoor for the tool for the remainder of this year. Anything else that should be said about timing on that?
Yeah, whatever date I put out there has an equal opportunity of not being correct. I think that we're working on a number of things simultaneously, obviously, and I think part of what folks will hear tomorrow will potentially make this make sense. I think, like, visually and functionally, the beginning of the year. Just because we have a lot of pieces that are moving as we go into 2022. So if you're in it now, I'm hoping that whoever decides they want to start using it today is thinking about it as a plate that's waiting to be filled with ideas that you put on the table, and not thinking of it as, oh, is this a great resource that has all the information I'm looking for? We're opening the doors because we're looking for partners to help help compile those collections.
Yeah, thanks for double clicking there, Liz. And that's one of the things that was lifted up, again, reaching back to the dialogues is, early ideas for what folks had that they would like to contribute. We'll be sharing some more sort of in coming months as well with some of the other tools. For example, there'll be the capacity to work with staff to write guest stories. Again, to be able to, as a work team who is would like to create their own learning journey and have some supports to be able to build out a piece. There'll be an ongoing, flow of submission and harvesting of core resources. So super excited to be able to activate, again, the additional pathways and provide sort of the access directly to be able to make some of those contributions. Be happy to extend and ask if Alicia has any additional comments, and if not, Monty, I would hand it back over to you.
Yeah, and I'm just noticing.
Sorry.
Go
ahead, Liz.
Yeah, Alicia, and I think if you want to, do your first take on this, I'm just noticing the questions from Lauren and April there at the end of the chat. So if you want to maybe do a first, and I'm happy to add, however it'd be helpful.
Yeah, I mean, I think the kind of going back to the goals of this platform and what we've been talking about, how we really do want it to be useful to the groups that are coming together, for partners in their work. And so, the question, will this mainly be learning and discovering, or will there be links to current organizations who participate? I think it could depend on the subject matter and the evolution of this particular platform. In the beginning, maybe not, but I know that thinking back to like what April, you were talking about with the oral health LIN, would that be a place as things evolve where it's not just resources about oral health, but members who are active in that have a place to add their contact information to further the work that that group is doing. So I think it kind of comes back to, what are the groups trying to do together, and what are the tools that would be helpful to have on this website in order to support the work of that particular group. So it could be, but I don't think it's necessarily always going to be there. I think we're hoping there will be some give and take as you guys are all using this and providing input on what you want to see, that this particular platform has a lot of flexibility to be able to add that and to really tailor it to the groups that are meeting and getting together.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add to that. Thanks, Alicia.
Monty, just as I offer a final thank you, you're on mute as you come back in here with us. Just thanks, Alicia, for helping to create space for the conversation, and Beverly and April for your insights. Aaron for the demo, and just all of the tremendous support that has been offered so far for ideas for how this piece can come to life to continue to support the work. And over to you, Monty.
Great. Thanks, Stace and everyone. Yeah, I was really struck by April and Beverly's pieces. Their insights, and just kind of how learning is really, sounds cliche, the lifeblood of any network, particularly one that is trying to really be so responsive and adaptive, which this group has talked about all day and is clearly going to be required moving forward. And I guess the other thing that dawned on me, and just hearing you all talk, and Aaron and I and Stacy have worked together for a long time on technology with groups like the CDC or Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. And I think a lot of times people, they start with technology and they expect too much of technology, and they expect that somehow this magical technology is going to create a learning community. And we've been a part of so many efforts where it does not. And in fact, it just leaves people empty. And so what I'm really intrigued by and excited about is that we've been hearing all day, and particularly, you know, this last segment, of how you all have built a learning community. It's not perfect, but you've built trust. There's an appetite for learning. And this technology is just one piece of the means to really amplify that. And I think it's coming at a really interesting time as we think about tomorrow, the type of network that you all are evolving into that is less responding to what you're maybe expected to do through Medicaid transformation, which was great, but where you all are really driving the learning and the action where you're going. This type of technology, and more importantly, the culture that you started to create, could be really exciting to see. So sorry for my processing that, but I'm really, really excited about what you all had shared. And I know we're moving towards wrapping up. We've had a really great full day, and just wanted to provide space to see if there's anything else that you all either want to speak into before I pass it over to Liz again, that you want to share, or something that you want us to be mindful as we move into thinking about tomorrow.
Yeah, and I assume like folks can either put that in the chat or they can just unmute and jump on.
Yep. That's exactly right. So if there isn't that, that's fine. We've had a really robust, as often with this group, I think, dialogue. Just wanted to make sure that we have some space, and we'll have a little bit of space at the beginning tomorrow if there's something else that you feel like you want to get in there. Liz, the last thought for me is I think that this was a really great setup for tomorrow. I was trying to figure out if there was an appropriate way for me to use futurity in a sentence, and I don't think I'm capable of it, but I do think that there's some futurity coming tomorrow as we really are thinking about where this network is heading, and just the strength by which we're building on that. So I think, Liz, you might just do a light touch on what might be coming folks' way in the email, and as a setup for us to really reimagine and start to hear what's already kind of afoot for where this network is heading.
Great, thanks, Monty. And I do have a couple of just cleanup and closing comments, but I may pause. Sounds like Candace, you'd like to share your poem with folks before I do that. And you can just unmute yourself.
Hey, I'd squile Siam. Nostalgia Siam. There's my cousin in the background. Say hey, Daryl. I would like to share my reflection on the poem. I wasn't too sure what to think about that today, but as I started to look through the document, I started to put the tribal lens on this. So I wrote this up. So invite you to listen, and I'll try to read it clearly and slowly so we can process. Tribal relations of the North Sound, accountable community of health. How accountable are you as a partner to foster change, to be a catalyst of hope and prosperity, to create space to grow, to be a trusted convener? Do you acknowledge Coast Salish people, or do you just say you do? Do you know where the Lactamish territory is? Or do you even know who the Lactamish people are? Can you name the 8 tribes of the North Sound? Or do you just know some of the tribes? Are you a catalyst for change in tribal communities? Or do you just think you are? Do you invest in sharing resources with tribal communities? Or do you just work with what you got? Do you know about any of the elevating or emerging issues in tribal communities? Or do you just wait for someone else to bring it up? Do you foster informed action with tribal communities? Or do you wait for them to do something? Do you build capacity with tribal communities? Or do you just connect within your network? Here's how you can be that change, because being different makes the difference. Acknowledge Laktamish territory. Since time immemorial, Laktamish people are people of the sea. Honor tribal sovereignty. Lummi, Nooksack, Samish, Soxuatl, Stillaguamish, Swinomish, Tulalip, and Upper Skagit. Treaty rights. Point Elliott Treaty, the Treaty of Mukilteo. Sharing resources, government to government. The trust responsibility is between the United States and tribal nations. Civil society, self-governance, self-determination, and sovereignty. Elevating and emerging issues. National Congress of American Indians, U.S. Department of Interior. Informed action, civic engagement, census, voting, tribal endorsements, local elections. Building capacity, Northwest Washington Indian Health Board, Northwest Indian College, Northwest Indian College Foundation, Lummi Community Financial Development Institution, White Swan Environmental, Cecilia, Children of the Setting Sun Productions, Laktamish Foundation. What will these outcomes be? Targeted universalism. We belong. Restore health and wellness in tribal communities, and revitalize the teachings and the traditions of the people. Shashesh Wakwalik Sun Haishka Siam. Thank you.
Thank you, Candace. I have like 3 things to close with, but I need to just like take a breath. So I'm just gonna perhaps stay silent for a minute. Candace, are you okay? Because obviously we're recording this. If we put that in writing?
As a matter of fact, Liz, I know we could email that, but I don't want to, because our teachings are oral teachings and traditions. But I do invite you and some of your staff to transcribe that.
So not, okay, so you're asking us to take it out of the recording?
And you can put it in writing. You can put it in writing, but I'm not going to send it to you, because what is really important to us is handing down oral teachings and traditions. So
the reason I was asking is that at other times we take the excerpt out of the recording. That's why I was asking.
You bet.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So I am going to close us up and, leaving with such a profound message. You are going to get an email. So anybody who's registered for tomorrow's session will get an email that attaches a draft regional compact that we've put together. It has been influenced by you all, by advisors, by the board, by many over the last year. So this is not something we've been working on for like 2 weeks. It's something we've been working on for the last year. And so you'll see that, because that's really going to frame up our conversation tomorrow. I can't tell you how often we are all reminded of the fact that the ACH is operating under this 5-year waiver with the state. Our contract with the Healthcare Authority conceivably ends at December 31st, as do all of our contracts with you. And so we are looking at how we renew those agreements in the coming year, and that's what that draft compact that you'll see will be an introduction for how we are thinking about us being in partnership with each other, not just you and the versus the ACH, but really us with each other. And I will be digesting Candace's words probably for a long while. Some of the earlier things that were shared. Oh, someone's unmuted, but some of the earlier things that were shared that also really impacted me, actually came from this notion of how various folks around the state talk about whole person care. And when we're thinking about that, it's typically how do we connect behavioral health and physical health and oral health. And we think that we're getting to whole person care because we somehow connect services. And the last couple of hours have really been about people and humanity and connectedness. And so now every time I hear that, I'm going to be thinking, do we actually see people around us as whole human beings who all belong and who all have a sense of place? And so I just am very appreciative. You all give me a lot to think about as we continue to evolve this work, and look forward to you joining us tomorrow, because we also want to hear your feedback on how we're thinking about the next year and beyond. So thank you. Just, again, I just know that you could be in 4 other places and you chose to be on this call, and just thank you all for that. Yeah, you all get to go now. You don't have to, but you get to.
Thank you.
Thank you,
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.